Once again, I'm Greg Thompson, a solutions architect here at Sentera, and thank you for filling out the poll. Hopefully, as you've seen, this is our third installation. It's a continuing process to make sure we're delivering the best content to you. So today, what we're going to focus on is digital scouting. What is Field Agent? What's the process? And what are the advantages? Inside of that, we're going to talk about how to get started, how to set up Field Agent, how to optimize your experience. We're going to dive into in-season crop health imagery. We're going to talk about NDVI. We're going to talk about how it works, and we're going to talk about how to put it to work for you. And then how do we leverage notifications to know where to be, when to be, and why to be somewhere, making certain that we're utilizing all the tools that we have to really streamline your operation and get the best return for the time that you spend. So for those of you that have attended this series, this will be familiar to you. So what is Field Agent? Field Agent is a culmination of all of the data elements that you use in your day-to-day environment. Satellite data, weather, equipment data, all the way through to field operations, and our machine learning capabilities, coupled with our data capture tools such as drones, pulling all of those data layers together in one easy-to-use instance that feeds you that logistical advantage of where to be, why to be, and when to be somewhere. How does that process work? It all starts with monitoring, and this is where this starts to really pay dividends for you. You can't monitor every field at every second of every day, but we can. By using all of those data layers, we're continually looking at what's going on in the fields that are under your advisement and quickly guiding you to where you should be, getting you out there. So whether you're utilizing one of our data capture tools or you're simply ground scouting, diagnosing what the potential problem is. And then more importantly, collaborating with your stakeholder, whether you're an agronomist, whether you're a sales agronomist, whether you're a seed dealer or a grower yourself, working with all the parties involved to come together, to come to a quick decision. Because as we all have came to understand in the last few years, there's no such thing as a standard weather pattern anymore. Windows to make a decision and act are becoming smaller and smaller. So driving that decision in a shorter time window and then not stopping there, utilizing these tools to validate that what you recommended or the correction that you chose was the valid one, all leading into planning for next year to make certain that we're learning from what goes on in season and we're putting into practice for optimization the following year. What are some of the advantages of digital scouting? To start out, it's that continuous monitoring. Like I said, you can't be everywhere, but we can. So we track every acre, pinpointing you to management opportunities, knowing that I need to be at this field on this day because there's this potential problem. Driving you to scout smarter because I can effectively deploy resources. And when I talk about deploying resources, I'll get to this later on. Deploying a resource may simply be calling the grower that owns the field. Hey, Dan, I see that you have an issue on Dad's 80. Do you want me to come check it out? Or do you want me to drop a pin and tell you where to go scout? Really leveraging the time that you have to make the biggest advantage for you and the stakeholder. And that drives to maximizing time and efficiency. Because I know what areas I can focus on that I have the potential to solve problems on before I go to fields that are performing admirably. Really taking the time to understand where I need to be, why I need to be there, and when I need to be there, and ultimately leading to better stakeholder engagement. So if I'm an agronomist, I'm a seed salesman, if I'm an equipment dealer, understanding that my customer is getting the best benefit from the services that I'm providing gives them a better experience, holds my name in a higher regard, and makes that field perform more profitably for all parties involved. So when we talk about monitoring, we use a number of data layers in order to accomplish that. The first thing is satellite data. You have access to numerous years of satellite data, and we present this in your standard RGB imagery, NDVI, which we're going to talk about at length, and also NDRE, which is red edge. We mash that with weather data, so precip, growing degree days, components like that, also going into soil data. So when we talk about continuously monitoring, we take all of those components together and utilize that in order to feed you where problems may lie, whether it's something that generated from soil composition and the weather pattern for that year, or it's an observation from a satellite pass. So how do you get started in undertaking an experience inside of Sentera's Field Agent? Let's go through how simple that process is. First of all, just go to fieldagentsentera.com. If you're already a user, just sign in. If you're not, 2 lines below where we have highlighted in red, you can sign up for an account. Next, you can either add fields manually, or you can pull fields in from existing digital platforms that you're currently working in. Simply click on Accounts, and then Manage Connections. What you'll be presented with are 3 options to pull data over, and more importantly, share data back to where you want the data to exist. My John Deere DTN is actually my field for GrowMark, and simply click Connect, put in your username and password, and click Allow, and all of your information will be pulled over. Lastly, just click Import Fields, and everything will be pulled over into Sentera Field Agent, ready to use. Now we're going to talk about crop health imagery, and I'm going to throw this over to our principal scientist, Zach Marston.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. I wanted to talk to you all a little bit more about NDVI. A lot of people know that this is the Normalized Difference Vegetation Index, but I want to make sure people are familiar with how it's calculated, what it actually means, and how you can use it to your advantage. So NDVI is calculated by using a combination of near-infrared light and red light. And these 2 components are telling us different parts about the plant. Red reflectance is really telling us about the chlorophyll content, whereas near-infrared reflectance is telling us about the cellular structure. As plants are young and have tightly packed cells, we typically see very high near-infrared reflectance values. And as those cells start to expand and even get stressed and potentially degrade, we see those near-infrared values drop. Whereas with chlorophyll, as we see chlorophyll content increase, we see lower red reflectance. More of that light is being absorbed and used for photosynthesis. And so as we combine these 2 different wavelengths of light, we actually get a generally good indication about crop health. So it's important to understand that, but we also need to understand how we can actually use NDVI. So using NDVI may not be completely straightforward, but there are definitely different use cases, and overall we can use it for crop health monitoring. You can do this in Field Agent by creating customizable NDVI maps. You can use this for zone management and basically prescription generation. But this is also something that people can use to get insights into their overall field vigor. So I want to talk to you about a couple of different use cases, because I think it's important for people to understand that when you generate an NDVI map, it's probably not the best solution to always go to the red spot. There might be a good time to go and check these green areas. And there are a couple reasons for that. One, if you're worried about weed escape early in the year, what we see is that areas with excess biomass and typically weeds between the rows actually show up as greener early in the season. So that may be a good place to look if you're concerned about your post not being completely effective and you might have a weed escape somewhere. Another reason to look at the green values is because that typically tends to be lush green vegetation later in the season, and humidity levels can actually increase in the thick parts of the canopy and create an environment susceptible to disease, but we'll talk about that later. A good time to scout in the yellow areas is when you've been looking at your NDVI maps over time. And all of a sudden, an area that used to be green may have started to turn yellow. If the field is not getting close to senescence, that would be a pretty good indicator that something might be happening there, whether it's abiotic or biotic stress. This is a good chance to go and scout that area to see if there's a potential issue developing. And when you have a yellow area that's growing over time, there's a very good chance that there's an underlying cause of stress there that can be dealt with. There's also a good time to go and check the red areas. So early in the season, if you have ponding that ended up killing a portion of your field, you may want to get out there and check something. Additionally, late in the season, if you have red areas that popped up that were not there earlier in the season, this can be a really good indicator of crop stress. And so based on what you're looking for, you may want to check different parts of your field. You don't always need to go to the red spot. Sometimes it may be advantageous to check on the green portions or the yellow portions of your field. But ultimately, whatever your goal is, that's how you should be using NDVI. You shouldn't just be using it to scout the red areas. And I'll give it back to Greg to talk about some more specific use cases.
Thanks, Zach. If you go back to our digital scouting process, one of the things that we talked about was the ability to validate. The example that we're starting with is just that. What we've got here was a strip trial fungicide application that was done. And we flew the field for RGB and also NDVI. And what you can see is a visual difference in the top image, which is standard RGB, as well as the NDVI image, where we've applied in NDVI is greener and healthier. And you can see this days after application. So you look at how you have the ability to affect acreage in season utilizing NDVI. Here's a way to actually monitor the uptake of an application inside of a plant. And what happens is in season year one, maybe not a lot of value. There's a lot of intrigue, but maybe not a lot of value. But year two, when you correlate this to a yield monitor, what we noticed on every strip that was presented as green in this NDVI map that we created, there was a 5 to 7 bushel increase per acre. So when I have the ability to look at my as applied, look at my as affected, I will call it right now, utilizing an NDVI NDVI map that's created by utilizing one of Sentera's NDVI sensors and correlating that to a yield map, I have very compelling results to drive decisions into the next season, including planning for application. Because if the dollars work out, it's something that I would apply more broadly based on all the aspects that I have. And the ability to share all of these results, whether it's in other digital platforms, or if you or your customer wants to share with or if you want to share with your customer or a coworker, you can always share any of these results inside of FIELDAGENT. The other party does not need to have a license. You can provide them the full experience. So in this case, where we applied significant increase in yield, and we're able to show that before the combine rolled, which can help drive a lot of decisions earlier on for the following year. Next, we're going to go on to an actual byproduct of flying utilizing one of our NDVI sensors. When we capture data the raw image that we capture it in is actually near infrared. So in the top call out of the image here, you'll see that it is an orangey presentation. And what you'll notice is that anything that is down stands out. So I can simply fly a field and I can have whole field coverage. And where this gets very, very beneficial is inside of FIELDAGENT, I have the ability to create as many boundaries as I want. So if I were to fly in a field that was affected by wind, where there's now green snap, I would be able to see all of those downed areas, create boundaries around them, and have an accurate report of loss down to the 100th of an acre. So think about the ability to be that accurate for yourself or your customer, and then also be able to, with that flight, process the NDVI data and check on the health of the rest of the field. So not only can you see how the plants that remain standing are currently performing, but I also have the ability to have a very precise estimate of loss across an entire field using the NIR imagery that is captured, that we utilize to capture and process NDVI. Lastly, one of the things that I like to talk about is the ability to act in the moment, because these NDVI results, they're all available at the field edge. You do not need to upload an image to the cloud to have it processed and then bring it back down. When your data collection tool lands, you simply remove the SD card and pull it into your laptop, and your NDVI map is created for you. So not only can you look at that NDVI map and the underlying imagery to review what a potential problem is, but I can actually use this result to create a management zone. So once again, without an internet connection, it will take from 1 color to 20 colors, as simple or as complex as you want to be, and lump them together. Not only does it lump them together, but what you'll notice on the screen, I wanted this depicted in 4 colors. So this could be 4 application areas. Notice what it's presenting me. It's presenting me in my worst area. I have 42.24 acres. I can quickly understand chunks of my field and what is going on and make a diagnosis based on that. I can actually take this result, write a simple prescription. I could offload that prescription onto a thumb drive and load that into the cab of a sprayer. And think about that. If you remember from the beginning of the presentation, I talked about time windows getting smaller and smaller. Custom applicators are getting harder to come by. It's hard to find labor. If we have the ability to act in the moment, make a decision, and do this without ever leaving the field edge, think about the advantage that gives you. So you have the ability to go from flight to actual prescription to onloading to a sprayer without ever having to utilize an internet connection. Now let's talk about FIELDAGENT notifications. The current notifications that are available are emergence, V2. Why is V2 significant? Because that's when it's telling you to go out and utilize Sentera to fly for stand count. V6 and V10, which are important for nitrogen applications, excess rain, strong winds, and frost and freeze. What we're adding this year are seasonal characteristics. Is this excessively dry? Is this excessively wet? Hail. Being notified when hail occurs. If I manage a broad region and I don't live inside of a small window from where I work, I have the ability to understand on a field by field basis where hail could have damaged a crop, and I know where to be and what grower to reach out to. Crop stress notifications. When I look at the ability to manage many acres by myself, crop stress notifications are one of the biggest things to this. Because when we went back to our original data layers and we talked about satellite, everyone's been getting satellite data for years and years and years. But how do you leverage it? How do you go on a field by field basis and look at what the potential problem may be? Well, what we're doing is we're actually comparing those passes and presenting those potential problems to you. So when we talk about optimization and managing logistics, where to be, why to be somewhere, and when to be there, think about not having to review satellite data, but having that reviewed for you and the potential problems presented to you. And then also disease notifications, northern corn leaf blight, corn gray leaf spot, and soybean white mold. And then also we're doing soybean emergence and V2 as well as corn. How does the notification process work? It's simple. We use all of our monitoring tools, satellite, environmental, soil, and we do a comparative analysis. And we send you that notification. From that notification, you can diagnose via a ground scout. Maybe you're going to deploy someone to go out and perform a drone flight. Think about the value of both. If I don't really know what's going on and I need a further assessment, I'm going to go ground scout. If I know what the potential problem may be, and that's going to result in an application, go out and deploy a drone. So I have that actionable data layer to create that management zone and actually use it for my variable rate application. But whatever means you use, whether it's a ground scout, drone scout, or both of them complementing each other, it's going to drive you to a decision. And that decision is going to be the most effective that you can make. Let's walk through a sample notification deployment. Whether it's via email or inside of my application, I'm going to be presented with something is going on. I simply click on it and it will take me to the field that is currently, that something is currently being affected by this notification. And that's it. Before I move on, I want to stress another way of doing this. That's a sample deployment for a notification. It is truly that simple. I receive something, I click on it, I go to the field. For those of you that have used FIELDAGENT as well, another way to manage your day is when you're in FIELDAGENT, you can sort by notifications. So think about if I've got, whether it's 200 fields or 3,000 fields, if I have the ability to sort by fields that have notifications, I have my work list for the day. Here are all of my fields that have a potential problem. Let me focus on them first, and then let me move on to something else. And think about when you have the ability to stack these notifications together. In this case, 2 are better than 1. How do we use them in conjunction with each other? What you'll notice is I have an emergence notification, and then I received a potential frost notification. I reside in northern Minnesota. We have frost notifications throughout, sometimes through the end of May. And they don't really matter until I have emergence. So when I get a frost notification and I go to a field and emergence hasn't taken place, not that big of a deal. But if I have the ability to get that frost notification and I see that emergence has already taken place, I understand that I need to take action and go out and assess that field to check damage. So where to be, when to be, and why to be somewhere, just with the ability to couple 2 notifications together. Now, look at hail notification coupled with V6. I'm at a certain stage inside my field, and I've now hail has occurred. Prior to that, it may not be as significant, but now it is. Once again, utilizing both in conjunction to understand whether the field has the potential to bounce back or where I'm at inside of that process. And lastly, look at when you can put all of those things together. When I'm at V10 and I've got fast growth, strong wind, and excessive rain, I've got a high potential for green snap. I probably need to go out and take a look. But what we're showing here, our notifications aren't just valuable as a one-time occurrence. They're valuable when you start stacking them together to understand the state of the field that you need to assess and what the likelihood of something happening is going to be. And this presents you multiple layers in order to make a decision whether I need to drive to the field to take action, call my grower to take action, or simply deploy a scout because I know something needs to be done. I'm going to throw it over to Zach, and he's just going to walk through the disease notifications as it relates to the disease triangle now.
Yeah, so for those of you who are not familiar, this is the disease triangle. And the way this works is that in order for disease to actually occur in your crop, we need a combination of a favorable environment for the pathogen. The pathogen has to be present, and there needs to be a susceptible host. And so I want to make sure that people understand that what we're doing is we're really monitoring the environment here. And the way that we do that is by coming up with basically biology-specific indicators that environmental conditions are conducive for pathogen growth and spread. And so when you receive a disease notification, that is not necessarily an indicator that disease is present in the field, and it may not necessarily mean that disease is not there. However, what it does indicate is that environmental conditions have been favorable, and if the field is at risk, meaning the host is susceptible to the disease, it may be worthwhile to go and scout your field for these diseases to ensure that the pathogen is either not present or can be addressed if it is present. So we just want to make sure people are using these properly and they're not basing fungicide sprays based on the disease notification. It is still very important to go out into your field and scout when you receive these.
As you reach out, on the screen you see marketing@sentera.com. If you have ideas or you have suggestions, or if there are things you would like to see in the future, please feel free to email that or reach out to us and let us know. Your input is the most valuable commodity that we can get. So any suggestions you have, feel free to reach out in any of the manners, funnel them through Nolan, reach out to marketing. If you have a salesperson already, let them know. Whatever we can do to make this time the most valuable for you, we will make sure we do everything in our power to accomplish that.